Okay, everyone, it's Tuesday, the 30th of January, and we're here with the morning briefing from the Celtic Way. I am Hamish, we've got Tony here, Ryan here as well. How are you all? It's great to have you all on, hopefully to be nice and positive today and talk about plenty of Celtic transfer activity. And I'm doubting myself already, because is there a great deal of Celtic transfer activity actually happening? There's some outgoing stuff we can discuss. Lagerbielke, there's some potential signing news. It's a contract, it's not a new signing. Rocco Vata, maybe. And there's us definitely not signing players news. We've got some of that as well. And also former Celtic player potentially signing news. So we've got it all today, Ryan. You're raring to go?
Absolutely, yeah. Going to attack it with a bit more of a positive mindset today. Celtic will be busy in the last couple of days of the transfer window. We did talk about the fact that Celtic needed to offload players as well as bring them in. So, that is half the battle at the end of the day. The squad is absolutely bloated with players not really making an impact. So, I guess as a positive that those players are getting moved on, the likes of Lagerbielke that we'll talk about, other players as well. You would think before the window's up, it's the last chance for a player to move before the summer, so they won't want to be sitting about doing nothing. I don't suspect. So yeah, hopefully it's busy in both ends. I know it'll be busy in the offloading, but hopefully there'll be a couple of incomings as well.
Oh, Hazel's just fired Danny Ings' name into the chat. Less than 2 minutes into the stream and we're already taking suggestions about players like Danny Ings. Listen, we'll come on to all this. I'll introduce Tony in a wee second. Before that, reliability is what you're after. Our sponsor certainly ticks those boxes. MPH Group and Navien. MPH, Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trades specialist, and they cover mainland Scotland. If you're in that area and are thinking of giving your home heating system a boost, they are the people to go to. MPH even offer flexible finance options too. Tony, how are you?
Yo, how are you? You all right? You good?
Me? I never get asked that. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. That's about it.
Nice one. Danny Ings, is that the new Stephen Fletcher, the new Michael Cadlick, the new Hacking Yakin? Anyone from a long list of people who were always linked with Celtic.
From Boguson.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, indeed. I think that's.
I love how he's just thrown.
10. Yeah.
Hazel just throwing that one out and no other information around it. So Hazel, where have you heard it? Did you hear someone mentioning it? Where do you hear rumours out and about these days? Is it in a taxi or something like that?
I think it's on X. I saw it myself this morning, to be fair. Twitter,
what was
X,
the gist?
Basically, Danny Ings coming to Celtic and people saying would they take him, and various people commenting saying he's too old or he's not getting a regular game, or people saying he would do a turn, others saying he's not the big bustling centre forward that they need, that kind of stuff. So Plunge McNugget saying Mark Guidi said Ings, so if it's Mark Guidi that said it, that would have been on Real Radio?
Go Radio.
Go Radio, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Go Radio.
I thought you were going to say if Mark Guidi said it definitely won't be happening. Mark Guidi's interesting. I mean, Ings would tick the box that we're kind of expecting to be ticked maybe once, maybe twice of it would be a loan signing probably. It would, I think there was a report last night, was it, Ryan, from the Daily Mail, Stephen McGowan saying that the signings are likely to come from England. We're looking at a left back and a forward. Ings would kind of like slot into that. So is there something in this?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure on his exact position at West Ham either, because I know that he was getting some games, but maybe he's in search of more game time. I know he's quite far away from the international setup now. He's probably past it in that regard, but it doesn't mean that he can't do a job, or he couldn't do a job up in Scotland. You look at the likes of Jermaine Defoe, who was older than Danny Ings, who came up to Scotland and scored quite a few goals. He's a player that I wanted Celtic to sign years and years ago. I think that would have been about near enough 10 years ago now when he was at Burnley before he made that move to, was it Southampton or Liverpool?
What age were you back then? I would have been about 16. Primary school.
16. I'm not as young as I look. It was one of those players that I thought that Celtic missed out on the first time around. Could say the same for Dominic Solanke, although he's been a bit of a late bloomer at Bournemouth. But he knows where the goal is. He's got a proven track record of scoring in the Premier League. I've got no doubts if Celtic were to bring him in, he would make an immediate impact in the first team. He's a good finisher. He scores all types of goals. Despite his size, he doesn't get bossed about at all. I think he would be able to handle the rough and tumble of the Scottish Premiership, and if he was to get brought up, I think he'd come with the right attitude as well. If it was only for 6 months, then I think he'd be wanting to make it one of the best 6 months of his career, and I've got no doubt that if he was to come in, he would score goals for Celtic. But I've only heard rumours at this point. I've also heard rumours about Kvistgaarden as well. Brøndby apparently say that he's going to leave in the next 48 hours, so that could be an interesting one to keep an eye out on for the rest of the time. Don't know what I'd much rather want just now. A player that's proven, like Danny Ings, for 6 months, or somebody that could potentially be really good down the line in about a year or so. I know he'd make an impact instantly as well, but do you want the long term in Kvistgaarden or the short to medium term in Danny Ings? I'm not so sure at this point.
Also,
yeah,
Van Hooijdonk rumours bubbling over, but I think Celtic are one of a number of options possibly for him.
Yeah, seems like that might not happen.
Yeah,
from a few things I'm reading, but Danny Ings. I mean, we've literally spoken about a rumour that I've not even seen for the last 5 minutes, so it's guaranteed to happen now. Also, this was literally in a group chat, and again, I've not been able to verify it, but I heard Matt Targett's name mentioned. Did you guys hear that at all? I think he's maybe at Newcastle or former Aston Villa left back.
He's at Newcastle just now, and Eddie Howe was asked about him yesterday, and he said there's nothing in it. Also, Matt Targett is injured at the moment, so he kind of shot that down with one swoop. It was on Sky Sports. I was watching Sky Sports News yesterday, and he was specifically asked. It's the first time I'd actually heard of that rumour as well, so, I don't think there's going to be anything in that.
Would be a Celtic thing to do, wouldn't it? Sign a left back that's injured. In the transfer window. Yeah, it would be in keeping with the theme of, discontent during this window.
Speaking of Sky Sports, Jordan, and again, we're just taking your word for it, everyone, so you all seem like trustworthy people. Jordan saying Sky Sports saying Cardiff are in for David Turnbull. Is Turnbull one that, like, obviously this is, we have to make any money on him, he has to go in the next few days. Is that strikes me as one that could maybe happen, because like Turnbull is so far down the pecking order. I know he's seen some game time recently, but with Hatate to come back, he clearly isn't fancied by Rodgers, and if we can get, I don't know, what would you even get at this stage, $500,000, $1 million maybe for David Turnbull with 6 months to go, and he can go and get more game time and hopefully improve his fortunes. That would make sense, Tony.
Yeah, and I think judging by his demeanour on Saturday, he looked like a player that was just kind of counting the days, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he'd be hoping that he might get something in this window, or has maybe been told if anything comes in, you're surplus to requirements. No, Ryan was really, both of you were really annoyed at his attempt or non-attempt to chase back on Saturday, and you just look at players, don't you, and you think, yep, I think Turnbull, as well as the club, see the writing on the wall. So if that can be manufactured into some kind of deal and Celtic get any kind of recompense for it, I would urge the player and Celtic to jump at it, because as you say, he's that far out down the pecking order, isn't he? If you had a team picture, you'd be saying to Turnbull, right, you just stay that side and we'll take these guys type thing, and it's no slight on Turnbull, there's just better players at the club, and Rodgers gave him his chance, didn't he, at the start of the season. Spoke very highly of him, he did a couple of good things, but you just don't see it working out for Turnbull at Celtic anymore, and if that's the case, you have to cut your losses and move on. Yeah,
I mean, he arrived with a lot of promise and has kind of produced some big moments and scored a fair few goals, but he's just not got that kind of dynamism in his game, I think, that we need domestically. but I think he could go on to have a pretty good career. Like I could see him being. I don't know if he'd ever kind of reach Premier League level, maybe for a kind of team battling relegation there, but certainly in the Championship down south, I could see him being, a pretty solid player who, contributes a lot of goals and that kind of thing. But no real arguments, Ryan. It's probably time to move him on. Do you think he'll move in the next few days, or do you think he'll be with us until the end of the season?
I think he'll move on in the next couple of days. The fact that Cardiff City have made that initial contact, they see the chance in bringing him in. They could easily have made contact and got him on a pre-contract. They could have had him signed up for the summer. I guess both parties just want this to be moved on as quickly as possible. At the end of the day, another person could be used in that spot. That could be a spot for Daniel Kelly to be on the bench. A player that will be at the club for the next few years. Turnbull's only got 6 months left in his deal. I've got to say, I did expect more from David Turnbull from when he signed to where he is just now. All the big hullabaloo when he was originally signed, and then there was something found in his medical. That debacle in 2019 was dreadful. I still remember the statement that Celtic put out: if not, we move on. We've offered him a great deal, etc., etc.
Remember the photo of him wearing a kit that he would never actually wear for Celtic? That
yes.
Big collar, I think it was 2019-20 kit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was next to Neil Lennon, who was in a suit as well. But the year later, I think there was a lot of it. It was a gentleman's agreement between the two sides. I would say that if Turnbull was fully fit from his injury, Celtic would have the first offer and would be able to bring the player in. And he was the shining light in that terrible 2020-21 season. But I wanted them to push on, and unfortunately, it's all down to injuries and the timings of injuries. Maybe he wouldn't have made it anyway, like in the way that we thought he would. But that injury, was in the League Cup final in 2021. By the time he'd came back, Rio Hatate was in the starting lineup, and he wasn't going to be taking Hatate out of that lineup.
O'Reilly.
So it's unfortunate. Yeah, O'Reilly was there as well. So much competition for places. But you've got to remember that he was one of Andrew's trusted players in the first half of that first season. He played most games. It's just his timing was awful, and he'll go with my best wishes if he does leave the club, and I hope he does well down south, because you want to see him kick on, because he's got all the talent in the world, and I think maybe the Championship could be a better fit for him. If he's playing week in, week out, then I've got no doubts he can be a star down there.
I had a feeling maybe Italy would be a good move for him, and I actually heard probably about, I don't know, 6-7 months ago that he was kind of interested in that, and has seen the success that a lot of players his age have had moving from Scotland to Italy. But Cardiff's a good move. We'll see if anything plays out there. Right, a couple of comments. Kaiser will sign one more right winger. Wow. Not sure if I see that, but he's always the optimist, Kaiser, and we love that about him. Andy Gorman, why do you think we leave business to the very last minute? Who wants to tackle that one? Tony, that might be one for you.
Why do we leave business to the very last minute? Because our approach to this, as I said yesterday, and I wrote a piece on the website, it's just scattergun, and it's bordering on shambolic. Now, we're going to talk about Gustaf Lagerbielke. I think that's the biggest and most damning indictment of your recruitment team, that this guy comes in and doesn't even get 6 months, and he's going to leave. I want to know the process. I said it about Alexandre Bernabe as well. Who picked these players? Why could you lash out so much money on these players and they don't make a valid contribution? Somebody has to carry the can for that. Somebody has to answer the fans' questions, because that's a lot of money that's been frittered away on both of those players. And you have seen the square root of sod all from them, quite frankly. And so, yeah, you can point a lot of fingers and say a lot of things, and but the business that Celtic have done in the summer, bringing 10 players in, is, and what, one of them making a valid contribution, Luis Palma? Yeah?
Yes,
that's shocking. It's utterly shocking. And they wonder why we're scrambling about trying to get loan deals, because I think the manager has laid it out on no uncertain terms. He needs better players. And I think at some point Brendan Rodgers has to also say what part he's played in this process because it's fluctuated from my work with the players that I'm given. Now these realise that they're substandard, to an AGM when all the top table are sitting there saying there's not a player that comes in that I don't get the veto on. So the truth lies somewhere in between those statements, doesn't it? And that's why Celtic always leave their business to the last minute, because the recruitment, quite frankly, has been appalling, and nobody can deny that. The proof's there. 10 players, one of them's a natural starter at this minute, and that natural starter has, in the past few weeks, gone off the boil a little bit. No, Ryan's a big defender of Lewis Palmer, but and he likes him, and he's got some good numbers and stats, and I get all that, but I'm watching a player going off for him, and his 2 penalties the other day and that attitude towards that kind of cemented that for me a bit. So I would be leaving Palmer on the bench personally if I was the manager. But see, as you said the other day, it was the 29th, it's now the 30th, and we're talking about 2 loan deals possibly from England. I think that's a shambolic state of affairs for a club that is cash rich. It really is. It says it all.
Yeah. I think I actually called that about a month ago. I said we'll probably be going about last few days of the window looking for loan signings.
And your tongue was probably firmly in cheek at that point, wasn't it?
Well, to an extent. You always know what Celtic are really like.
Yeah,
I don't understand. Previous regime, like, we got into the habit of actually doing our business really, really early. The January, I remember the December it was actually when we signed the 3 players from Japan, and they were all in, and they were all almost firing by the end of January, and Alistair Johnson was brought in before Josip Juranovic was sold, and we were all just really excited because it really seemed like not only did we have a team to be proud of on the pitch, but off the pitch, things were moving around, and the club had an idea about how to replace players, and they weren't it didn't seem as if they were taking ages to sign players. I mean, Scotland the Brave, they mentioned, why did it seem like Rangers basically signed players straight away after being linked, and why does our deals drag on? And maybe it just seems that way, but to me anyway, it seems like there's something in that. But we were like that under Postecoglou, and I know there's always a thing about just loving everything about him, and he had his flaws as well, but was he just responsible for all the recruitment at the club, Ryan, and making sure we got players in quickly? And the minute he left, it just seems as if we've gone back to our old ways of waiting until right at the end of the window, looking for last minute deals and being reactive rather than proactive.
Well, I was definitely in charge of them for the first year, because until Mark Lawwell came through the door, it was his job basically as a de facto director of football as well as managing the team. Ange Postecoglou probably wasn't on enough money for what he was doing, especially in that first season, because he was doing absolutely everything, as we found out. But it's odd because although the recruitment wasn't as good when Mark Lawwell came through the door, they were still doing business early under Ange Postecoglou, yet it seems to have changed under Brendan Rodgers for whatever reason that is. I thought one of the reasons why Brendan Rodgers would come back to the club in the first place was because those changes had been made to the recruitment side. He mentioned that in his very first interview when he was sitting down with Jerry McCulloch in Celtic TV. He said that the recruitment team's really good. He likes that they've made changes, positive strides over the past few years, and that he was happy with how it was working or how it was going to work. Then it seemed as if the transfers were at odds with that feeling, because I remember Celtic signed a couple of players. They got Odin Thiago home, who was linked when there was no manager, so that was basically a club signing rather than a manager's signing. But there was a good month between the second and the third signing came in, and you're like, well, maybe there should be more players coming in at this point, especially players like Brendan Rodgers.
Line was, I'm evaluating the squad that we've got. That was his line.
I mean, that's the thing. He could have potentially done that when he was about to take the job as well. He maybe needed to see them in person. I get that, but I just wanted, maybe less signings in the summer, but more quality. I don't think Celtic needed to add 8 or 9 unless there was players that were going out the way at the same time. All they needed to do was replace the players that were leaving with genuine quality to just supplement the team and make the team as strong as it was before. But yeah, the recruitment the point with Rangers have brought in a sporting director from PSV who's been involved in a lot of success. It seems as if he doesn't waste any time with regard to getting players through the door. 1 minute they're linked, and the next they're basically jetted in and signed for the club. So, I think Mark Lawwell's got to, do a better job. In all honesty, I don't want to go in on him too much because it seems like an easy target when we don't really hear too much about him. But at the same time, the proof is in the pudding, and there's a severe lack of pudding at the moment in terms of transfers.
Mark Fairfield, bottom line, Ange wouldn't have stood for this. Rodgers seems a yes man now. Claire, I do my best to get Facebook comments up. There is no bias against Facebook people. I like Facebook people, but I'm sure the guys will agree, like the vast majority, I think about 90% of our comments we get live are from YouTube, but I'll keep a special eye out for Facebook comments. So if you're watching Facebook, let us know. But we have a YouTube comment here. Next 3 games will define the season, IMO from Wombat. Thoughts on that, guys? I know we've gone a little bit off topic, Tony.
Oh yeah, I mean, I said to you off air when we came off the programme yesterday, there's a perception and there's like momentum and all that, and whether you can argue the toss that Clement's getting a tune out of Rangers, they're getting results. And I said to you, if Celtic slip up at all and lose a match or drop points and Rangers go top, do you see them retrieving that situation? And I said no, because I don't see anybody beating Rangers. It's only Celtic that are capable of beating Rangers. So at this moment in time, and then Ryan was saying he didn't trust Celtic not to drop points as well. So the next 3 games are going to be pivotal. Yeah, I mean, Pittodrie, they've certainly made light work of Pittodrie in the past, but that's a big pressure game. And Easter Road, Brendan Rodgers hasn't won there, has he? I don't think Celtic have won there under Brendan Rodgers. So
that game gives me the fear.
Yeah, and I think out of the two of them, that's the one that gives you the fear. Yet Rangers went last midweek and dismantled Hibs, made them look very, very ordinary. I don't think Rangers were any great shakes that night themselves, but they are grinding out results. You're in a title race, and as I said yesterday, you're stumbling into a haymaker if things don't get addressed, and that's exactly what will happen. And this has been allowed to happen, I think, and you can only always question why. And it always comes back to recruitment, doesn't it? The manager from the summer was talking about, you think he wanted 4 players of quality and got none, and he still got none in the January window. So that's where we're at. Yeah,
I mean, we've still got a couple of days to get players in.
Yeah,
a left back's a vital one for me, but at the moment there's obviously no real chat. Gustaf Lagerbielke, reporting Italy, says that Serie A side Lecce are closing in on the signing of Lagerbielke, Sweden international. Talk is, Ryan, that it would be a 6-month loan, probably with an option to buy at the end of the season. Does he fit into a similar place to Turnbull? I know he's got a much longer contract, but isn't really going to feature.
Yeah, it seems as if Brendan Rodgers has made his mind up about the player, and he's basically, the first team casualty for Liam Scales, because Liam Scales is now a first team player, and I don't think the club can afford to have so many centre backs that aren't playing for the club at the moment. Nawrowski's stepped up in the past couple of games. Cameron Carter-Vickers is back, but yeah, 6 months of 6 months of Gustaf Lagerbielke, and he's already out the door. I think that's a bit of a damning indictment on the scouting, or maybe lack of scouting.
Do you think he's a player we'll look back on and go, oh, what were we doing there? Like, he's turned out to be really good. Like, maybe a bit in Moritz end, or is he just a player that was kind of Celtic will be his biggest club?
If he can get any faster, then I think Celtic will think like that. But he's just got no pace whatsoever. I think that was maybe one of the reasons why the Celtic have decided to offload him. Between that and his passing, his short range passing isn't so good. He's probably better passing the ball 20-30 yards than a couple of yards, which is problematic because at Celtic, the centre-backs are essentially the first playmakers on the park. They're the ones that have to make things happen, pass it to the midfielders, pass it to the wingers, but he obviously struggles with that. It's a shame because he came in, he's clearly got a good attitude. He was good in his press conferences as well. He scored that great goal against Feyenoord, the last minute header. Yeah, so he'll always have that moment. But for now, with going on loan, it's clear that he isn't fancied by Brendan Rodgers. Not completely shutting the door on the player, but the fact that there's an option to buy would indicate that Celtic just want rid of him, to be honest. And that's only 6 months in, and one of your highest signings of the transfer window is already getting shipped out, not even permanently, on a loan deal to another team. That's it's not a great look for the scouting team and the recruitment team, I would say. But they haven't looked great for the past year or so, to be honest.
I think the writing was on the wall, Hamish, when he made that mistake at Ibrox and Rangers scored. Kemar scored the one that he was dispossessed, but it was disallowed. I think Brendan Rodgers made up his mind then, because he made a big deal about that, saying he'll need to learn, he'll not do it again, and kind of said he was only playing because I had to play him when my hand was forced, or else he'd have been nowhere near the starting 11. And I think his card was marked then by Brendan, because he just wasn't having that. It could have proved
red card against Feyenoord as well was a big one, wasn't it?
That too, So, and I just think he thought, I'm not having you, son. And then he made a point of mentioning Lagerbielke and Navrosky having to do more in training, didn't he? When he kind of, not so much threw them under a bus, but he was, we say he was savage, but it was very uncharacteristic of Brendan, saying these two guys have to do more type thing. So he just kind of, from very early on, I think he didn't fancy Lagerbielke, and I think that was maybe him sort of saying, questioning the whole recruitment process and asking, where did we get this guy from? Who sanctioned this type thing?
Yeah, I do want to move on from Lagerbielke. Just finally, Henrik McLarston saying, was Lager a recommendation signing rather than a scouted one? I sense you may be on to something there. We know that it was it Starfelt's agent helping
Starfelt's agent, one in, one out sort of thing.
I know we got a comment in a minute ago that I can't get my head around either, regarding the lack of pace, a very obvious lack of pace. How you wouldn't see that from the initial analysis of the player before signing him. Quickly, Ryan.
Yeah, any scouting video would have shown you that he has no top level pace. The Swedish league is a very different league from playing in the Champions League. So a player that's in that league will translate to be a good player even in the Scottish league, to be fair. But yeah, it just hasn't worked out. These transfers happen. Celtic have got to have more hits than misses, and unfortunately, this one was a bit of a miss.
Owen Beck might fit into that category as well for a different reason. He'll be heading back to Dundee on loan for the remainder of the season. He was an impressive performer this season at Dens Park. Celtic linked to him this month, actually, even featured as a sub for Liverpool earlier this month as well. That kind of ruled us out because he can only play now for Liverpool or Dundee. He can't play for 3 teams in a single season. I don't think it's been announced yet, but Beck heading back to Dundee. I sense this might be one to, keep an eye on. Keep an eye on him over the next few months and also in the summer, because I feel like this might be a future Celtic player we're looking at. What would you reckon, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, we waxed lyrical about Owen Beck after the Boxing Day game. Thought he was excellent. And I just see if Celtic were interested in him, you'd get that deal done. You just say to Liverpool, we'll take him. So whatever happened there, what a breakdown in communication that is. Just inept. Again, that scattergun approach, and Klopp played him for 7 minutes. You know what I mean? If you really want a player, he's no vital to Liverpool. Go and get him. 7 minutes. I mean, ridiculous that. And he's now at Dens Park. He should be flourishing at Celtic, having a cracking part to the season, trying to win trophies and helping Celtic in a problem position. You and I can see that. Ryan can see that. every Celtic supporter can see that we need another left back, and I don't know what happened there in terms of the recruitment of Owen Beck, but again, it's failed abysmally. And as you say, if we're watching a future Celtic player, going to have to pay a few quid for him, aren't you?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. As I say, I'm
yeah, I know you're
yeah,
projecting.
I don't know enough about him. I'll be honest. I've only I've only really seen highlights of him, to be honest, and obviously the Boxing Day game. But I was more focused on Celtic. But he clearly has some sort of talent to feature for Liverpool. So I'm just interested to see how he does between now and the end of the season, and whether Celtic, pounce it in the summer. Jota, former Celtic winger Jota, this is seems to be heading to West Ham. This one I think broke yesterday. A number of outlets reporting that a deal is close. It would likely again be a loan deal. A lot of loan deals here, although there are said to be salary and tax issues to overcome. He's obviously in Saudi Arabia at the moment. Jota, it'd be interesting. Obviously no real direct Celtic link here, Ryan, but it would be interesting to see him in the Premier League, and I think he would do pretty well there.
Former Celtic player potentially going to work under another former Celtic player, and David Moyes. There's plenty of Celtic links, and we'll take it. I'm positive about this one. I'm happy for Jota. Jota's done absolutely nothing wrong to deserve any sort of stick from Celtic supporters. He chased money in a league where better players than himself are going. Look at Benzema, you look at Milinkovic-Savic, Ruben Neves as well. He's seen the money, and he was like, this is changing. What is it, sorry?
Jack Hendry.
Yeah, absolutely. Moussa Dembele playing there as well. Jordan Henderson, although that hasn't worked out for him. I'm delighted that he's going to be going and getting first team football potentially. It looks as if Said Benrahma is going to be leaving West Ham anyway, so that frees up that position for him to come in and make an impact. I just want to see Jota playing football, and if it can't be at Celtic, then I'm delighted it's down south. I'm sure David Moyes will get a tune out of him. A really, really good player for Celtic over those 2 years. One as a loan player and one permanently. I just hope he can get his career back on track. It's only been 6 months, so he's not lost that much of it, but at the same time, it'll take a while for him to sort of get in the swing of playing, maybe most weeks now. So I hope he gets reacclimatised well, and does well for West Ham.
I love Jota. I think we all love Jota, and it's like it's frustrating that he hasn't excelled over the last 6 months, and there's obviously he's gone to a kind of strange environment. I think it's fair to say, with various rules that mean he maybe can't play certain matches and stuff like that. But it's frustrating seeing him sitting on the bench and not doing what we know he can do when he could still be at Celtic and he'd be flourishing, and I guarantee our season would be going that little bit better if we still had Jota, because he was an amazing player for us. But it'd be great to just see him back playing regularly, close to home again. And as I said there, Tony, I think he'd do pretty well at that level.
There was no greater or better feelings than seeing Jota smile when he scored, or do something well, or celebrate in his inimitable style. I think every Celtic supporter loved Jota, didn't he, for what he brought, that unbridled joy that he gave us in those moments. And I think there'll be a bit of Jota realising very early in that move that he's made a mistake. I mean, you saw the lengths he went to when his goodbye statement and his speech. All it was missing was tears, because he genuinely, I get back to it, he came to Celtic from Benfica, and he admitted himself he fell in love, and the feeling was reciprocal. Every now and then you get a special talent like that, and the worlds collided. He will never get the adulation like that again in his career. He'll be well paid, he'll be handsomely rewarded, and he'll play at whatever level his talent takes him. But he will never experience the love and affection and just complete and utter adulation that he got from Celtic and their supporters, because everybody bought into it. And I think that 6 months of his career has taken a lot out of him, Ryan. There will be a reacclimatisation, and getting back to being match fit as well. And I hope he flourishes in the Premier League. If he does go to West Ham, I wish him all the best. Personally, I just think he's a wonderful talent, and he deserves to be playing at a really good level. And I'd like to think that someday that he might actually come back to his second love, because Benfica were his first love. But I think I'd love to think that at some point he might say, "Do you know what? Fancy another crack at that," because he'd be welcomed back with open arms. And I know
One
there's people
thing,
say he's gone, move on, but it's topical, isn't it? So, and if he comes back to British football, I think he would flourish.
one thing I would say about that move is that it's extremely attractive to the player as well. You look at the profile of players that West Ham now have at their disposal. You know, Paquetá, that's a Brazilian international. Mohamed Kudus, who's been one of the best signings of the season. Jared Bowen, who's an England international. It's a good team that he's joining. You know, with a good manager that's managed to turn it around. Somebody was in the comments saying, you know, the turnaround that Moyes has had since Man United and Sunderland, it's been a good job at West Ham. I think it's a good move for him, and I hope he does well.
Yeah, we'll see how that one goes. Memories of the last couple of years under Jota always bring a smile to your
Exactly.
face as a Celtic fan. But there's more good memories to come, guys, between now and the end of the season. I'm very confident of that. We may even get some over the next few days, a wee signing or two. Back tomorrow when surely we'll have a bit of incoming news, a concrete link, and something to really get our teeth into, not just people in the comments chucking out random names. But if we are struggling in a day's time, we might go down that road as well, because you're ever reliable. Thanks for tuning into this. Thanks, guys, for your time. Don't forget to give us a sub as well as we continue to move forward, and we'll speak to you this time tomorrow.